think we got it this time. Let's see if we can get Twitter to go too here. No, Twitter doesn't want to go. But, okay, at least we're on Facebook here. We can upload this to Twitter later, JB. And I think, if you maybe want to grab the link and send it over to there for those that want to know what's going on, maybe that's the way to handle it. But apologies for that, folks. We had our first real debacle with our software side for this go-around of things. Not sure why, but it happens from time to time. Luckily, it didn't happen yesterday during our Glardy show. That would have been embarrassing.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's on tape.
Which, by the way, Frank, I have to say,
oh yes,
some of your best work with the preview with all the 18 guys and the highlights and the music and the whole thing. It looked really cool. And the fun part for me was that since I've been kind of following along this year, I recognize all the different games that you were at. Like, oh, that was from Frank's phone. That was from Frank's phone. Like, he was there. And that was really cool.
And Pat had gotten the punt block, I think, at the Carnegie Mellon game for Robert Corey's highlights that we played later on, too. So it's kind of interesting how we end up at so many of these semifinalists and finalist games at the end of the day. And is it by design? To a degree, obviously. We try to go out and find the most competitive, exciting games, and that's generally who we see get nominated and everything else. But, it was definitely a fun time getting to put that together. A lot of work. It's a labor of love every year that we do that, but we got it done. And in the meantime, we had gotten a couple of interviews done yesterday with players, Josh Ehrlich from Susquehanna, and then also Will Leger from Johns Hopkins to talk about, hey, can your team pull an upset on Saturday? Because let's be honest here. Mount Union and North Central are the favorites. They're home teams for a reason. So we'll see where this goes. No number one seeds left. And here's a fun fact for you, JB. These games will be played on December 21st. This ties the latest ever date for competitive games to be played in Division III in history. Believe it or not.
Really?
2002 Stag Bowl is the only other time a game was played on December 21st and nothing after that. So when we get to the Stag Bowl, obviously we change that completely. But the two teams playing tomorrow will tie history, or four teams, will tie history in going to the 21st of December, which is 4 days short of Christmas, which scares the bejesus out of me right now because I need to get some shopping done. But first, I got to drive out to Alliance today and then catch a game tomorrow and then drive back. That's 7 hours each way. I think we should get the show underway. What do you think? But, actually, hold on. Before we do that, let's take a look at our Glardy finalists. We were mentioning them earlier. We lost our stuff down here at the bottom with John Glardy, but the point that's being made there is that we are going to make our announcement on the January 3rd, the evening of January 3rd. So January 3rd.
The 2nd. Friday?
Nope.
3rd?
Friday.
Okay.
Yep. Because if it ain't the 3rd, I'm a little perplexed about what we'll do. But I still don't know who won. And to decide how we're going to even do this is going to be a little challenging still for all of us. But we'll figure this out. But Zach Boyes, Destin Chance, Robert Corey, Luke Lennon, and Aaron Severson are the finalists. And hopefully Zach Boyes and company stuck around for the show yesterday because we did the kind of presto changeo at the end with, hey, we've got our final four with, who was it, Lennon. And then, by the way, we have a fifth one, Zach Boyes as well. So we like to, keep you watching, keep you guessing a little bit on the show to, break out of the monotony of it a little bit. But we'll see what happens. We got semifinals coming up. So here we go, JB. This is Season 17 semifinals, Week 16 of In the Huddle. Before we get to the semifinals, I want to touch on a couple topics right off the top here, if I can. First off, I saw some back and forth with one of our friends on Twitter with our friend over at the third division. And I just want to sort of say some things here with respect to that situation generally and the way we need to be in Division 3 is the way I would call it. Let's be honest, third division rubs some people the wrong way. It's a kind of one-man operation with folks helping him intermittently. But he's sort of, taking some teams to task. Brashly. Man, that would be good. I like that. And we've had some words with him, I think both you and me at separate times, about, hey, there's a better way to do this. And generally, he respects us enough when we come to him in a respectful way to say, I get it, and I think he's tried better over the last couple of years, and then every so often. And look, you're looking at a person talking right now that essentially had the same level of issues, maybe not to the brashness level when I first started out, kind of being a media guy for Division 3. But I had my moments. I was rough around the edges and everything else. And I would hope that by now, aside from our friends at Keystone that probably don't believe this, but, the time of maturity and everything else that's come along with it has made me, I think, a benefit to the D3 community, ultimately. And so that's what you've got to look at. Look at the product being put out. You can always smooth out the rough edges with people, but don't say and do things that are going to chase people away from this, D3 nation we've got here. He's got a Discord group that, a lot of players and other, D3 fans have flocked to. And if you watch the Glardy show, you saw the Riley Conley narration. I met Riley through that Discord in voice chat, heard his voice, said, my God, do you do broadcasting voiceovers and stuff? He does. And we got him involved. To have somebody from a D3 team being the narrator of a John Ghilardi piece, essentially, and the Ghilardi Trophy, was, I think, real great thing, and that would not have happened without the third division. So, we've said our piece about the Logan Hansons of the world, and, Logan still puts out a product that is interesting, to say the least. We've just taken him to task on the idea, hey, Logan, this ain't going to work to pick teams, ultimately, okay? It's cute, it's neat, it's a novelty, it's not useful for the, general strength of teams that we're going to have to utilize for an NCAA pick scenario, okay? That's what our point's always been to Logan. We get a little bit, into the fury of it all and whatnot. It is what it is. Pat Coleman and us, sometimes we collaborate well, sometimes we don't, whatever, but yesterday was an example of good collaboration. Third division, same thing. Yeah. So, folks, don't go personal attacks on people. And when you have an issue with us or him or Logan or whomever, I guess the best way to handle it is ultimately behind the scenes until it doesn't work behind the scenes anymore, which is kind of more or less, I guess, where we end up with Logan at certain times. But, again, he puts out a product that you like, and that's of value. So, enjoy it and embrace it. Sure. And there's plenty of room for all of us in Division 3. The second thing I want to talk about real quick before we get to the games themselves is this guy, Brian McGoffin. Today is his last day as sports information director or communications director or whatever they go by these days at Springfield College. He has been a huge friend of the show and a friend personally to me during my travels throughout D3 over the years. And this was at the Cortland Springfield game a couple weeks ago. He's moving to the president's office, essentially, because he is talented enough that they're doing the right thing, getting him over there to that office. But, I'll tell you a story about what makes Brian such a great guy, a great, passionate person about sports and football and everything else. When the Tyler Pullman situation occurred back in September, or late August, early September, whatever it was, I get a call on a Sunday from Brian saying, what do we do? Because he was concerned about the impact it would have on the team. not because of how to handle a media situation generally or anything like that, but it was more or less, how do I insulate the team from the worst of the media scenarios with such a travesty of a situation that developed on Long Island with Tyler's family and everything else. And, I walked him through what I have learned, through politics and through media over the years. And we executed it in a way that I think was effective enough to be transparent, but also say, hands off the guys, let them be in their family unit right now as a football team. And that was all because of Brian. Because if he hadn't reached out, I wouldn't have even known to give the advice I gave. And that is his passion toward other people. Brian, we love you, man. Congratulations. We're going to miss you for sure in this realm. But I have a feeling you're still going to be kind of on the periphery, poking your nose in every so often. And your nose is more than welcome to assist us whenever necessary. So congratulations to him. JB? And then there were 4. Yeah. Talk about them. Go ahead. And I should say 16.
Well, we got
actually.
We got the upstarts against the traditional powers, right? And so in the event of something different, we may not have a repeat of the 2022 Stag Bowl, which was between North Central and Mount Union. Hopkins and Susquehanna effectively kind of coming from a 4th seed position in their respective brackets have won a lot of close games along the way, knocking off some traditional powers, and here they are in the Final Four. 2 Region 2 teams. Who knew what was possible here? And Hopkins has ridden their defense. Susquehanna has ridden their offense. Basically, it's one of those kind of offensive teams that if they have the ball with a minute left, look out. Because they seem to find ways to eke out close games, and they've surprised a lot of people along the way. So I think this is exciting. We've got some fresh matchups for the semifinals, and we'll either see some great games or, like we saw last year, sometimes there's disaster in the first quarter and you never get over it. That was kind of what happened with Randolph-Macon when they played Cortland. A couple of mistakes, or I think it was a punt return touchdown or kickoff return. All of a sudden it's 21-0, and it's like, okay, this game is over. So I'm hoping for competitive games, but you never know. Sometimes when teams get to this level and they go up against a Mount Union or a North Central, lots of things surprisingly go wrong for them. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be shocked by each other's picks today when we get to it a little bit later on. But I have a feeling that, long story short, most of America is rooting for, I think, in some format, an upset, if not both upsets to occur, to shake things up a la the whole Cortland scenario last year. And when, there was some irony in Susquehanna at North Central, because remember, Cortland going against North Central last year is what kind of changed the paradigm in Division III. Here's Susquehanna that we keep comparing to Cortland because of the games they played against each other last 2 seasons. And now Susquehanna's turn to see if they can do the same thing. Josh Ehrlich and Zach Boyes have a certain dynamic about both of them. And, Zach Boyes, a Glardy finalist. Josh Ehrlich, he keeps playing the way he does. He will be next year, without a doubt in my mind. But long story short is they both have the same general skill set of being able to, RPO it when necessary, or to, just tuck it and run in a way that wasn't designed originally, but find the space to score, even if it's half an inch of a goal line scenario. And we'll talk more about that in a second here. But again, we're not here to root for teams. That's not what we do. But I think that from what we've seen on social media, etc., there's this desire to see a little bit of excitement in the shakeup of it all continue. If we have Mount Union, North Central, some folks might view it as kind of more the same, the paradigm going backward scenario. Yeah. But one thing I will show folks here is, we did track the Pool A winners, the automatic bids, and 4 check marks means that all the teams left are conference winners. There are no Pool C teams left in the playoffs. And you look at the MPI ranks, number 5, number 6, number 11, and number 16. 1, 2, 3, and 4 all gone. 7 and 8 gone as well. So that didn't last very long. And again, it starts to ask that question, I think, about whether or not this was the best idea that we're seeing with MPI. So, JB, I brought him up. Let's let him talk about his season and, or actually last week's game more than anything else. And we'll talk more about the game when we get out of this. In fact, we'll save the tail of the tape for after this interview. Here comes Josh Ehrlich, the junior quarterback from Susquehanna, to talk about the game at North Central on Saturday. Josh, last time I saw you, you were kind of beaten up. Your elbow's a little bloodied from a picture I've got. And at the same time, you're the happiest guy on earth because you had gotten into the end zone barely to win a national quarterfinal game versus Bethel. Thanks for joining us first off. And how did that moment feel for you in such a high-intensity anxiety moment like that?
Well, thanks for having me, guys, and shout out to you, by the way, for getting that video you got showing me getting that ball barely across the end zone. But that was such a cool moment to have the ball in your hands on 4th down, to send us to the national semis. It's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. Testament to the O-line for getting just enough, and the tight ends and the receivers for blocking their butts off that play till the end. I didn't think the game should have came down to that. I thought we had plenty of opportunities. I didn't have the best game myself. I definitely missed some stuff out there. So hopefully get that stuff back this week. And it's great to play another week.
Yeah, well, I think one of the best things about football and the length of the season is it gives you opportunity to learn, study tape, see what you guys did well, what you could do better. Looking back on the season, Josh, what lessons did you guys learn from the Cortland game? Because ever since that, not only have you been winning games either definitively, but in these playoffs, all the close games have come down to you guys making one last play that maybe you weren't able to do early in the season. What did that game teach you, and how have you been able to apply it in this playoff run?
Right. Well, I definitely think the Cortland game had something to do with us having the ball last and getting in the end zone. But I think it's also a mixture of the last 2 home playoff games we've had. We realized how hard it is to win in the playoffs. It takes 60 minutes, all 11 guys doing the same job, and that's something we carried with us, I think, from week 3, especially as an offense. So, with that being said, we have the best. I feel like we have the best offense in the country and the best O-line in the country. They make my job so much easier. Our quarterback coach always says be a great facilitator, be a point guard, and I have the athletes and the guys to do that. So I think from my perspective, just getting the ball to our athletes in space, and that's kind of been the key to our offense and winning those types of games on the last seconds and with the 2-minute drill, if you could say.
But Josh, you may have heard my comments on Around the Nation when I was asked about, whether or not Susquehanna believes they belong in this situation. I said definitively yes, because of the way you were playing in that game, which may not be a testament to you in your abilities necessarily what I said, but I more or less said that you were fighting anxiety because it seemed like you knew you were supposed to win that game and you were taking it on your shoulders specifically to win that game. Short hopping, happy feet, stuff like that. You didn't want to make a mistake, it seemed like, to sink your team, although you did throw 2 picks ultimately. Tell me about what you were going through emotionally, mentally in that game, and how do you change that mentality as you get ready for the behemoth in front of you at North Central?
Right. Well, I certainly wasn't myself that game. Like you said, throwing off my back foot, kind of hopping into some throws. But I think the best thing I can do is just put it behind me. That kind of sent us back to Moravian this year. We had a bad half. I had a terrible half first half. We came out and found a way to get it done in the second half. But I think, just putting it behind me and playing with confidence again, and putting trust in my guys and my O-line. And, I think we're playing a great North Central team, but I have all the confidence in us as an offense and in the defense to get stops and really put the ball in the end zone as much as we want to. So it's a business trip, and just playing confident. Just playing confident. That's it.
Well, and we'll get to that team in Naperville in a minute, but I'm curious, you weren't on the field for the last couple of plays, and there was some controversy at the end. What was it like for the offense sitting on the sideline watching this pass, which ended up being a touchdown, but called back because of holding, which was the obvious call? I mean, maybe you guys were like, that guy's holding right there. But what was it like for you and your teammates to kind of watch this thing play out?
Oh, I go through more stress on a Saturday than you can believe. I live and die every play sitting on the bench. But I wasn't watching. I couldn't watch. It was too stress-filled for me. Kind of like the St. John's kick. I just couldn't watch until I hear our fans screaming and stuff. So I thought it was the right call at the time. And looking back, I definitely believe it was the right call. Shout out to our defense for getting it in, and kind of the backyard play they ran at the end. So, those stressful situations out there, it's tough for me to watch.
Bethel may not agree with you. I will tell you that. We've seen plenty of social media traffic on this one, but you know what? The game is in the books, thankfully, because they did at least run the last play. Otherwise, we might have to go travel 4.5 hours to get it done again or something. I don't know what they would have done. But anyway, Josh, JB referred to, we'd get to this, but let's look at North Central, their defense, second to none. Their offense, they lost some receiving strength, but at the same time, they've got Joe Sacco as a running back, among others. And they've got Luke Lane, and obviously somebody that you probably aspire to be a little bit like in terms of the success level that he's had. How do you look at this game? I mean, you kind of gave short shrift to it a little bit ago in your first response, but I mean, that defense is not small. That defense is not lacking in talent in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, give us your take on North Central from what you've seen of them on film, et cetera.
Great football team. There's a reason why they've been in so many of these types of games. Like you said, Luke, he's a great quarterback. Definitely someone who I want to strive to be like, as I have 2 more years to play after this. But, like I said earlier, it's a business trip for us. I can only speak for the offense. But I know our defense coordinator is going to have a great plan for them too. But Coach Perkin, Coach Wine, they've had great game plans all year, no matter who we're playing. Whether it's week 1 or now week 14, it doesn't matter who we're playing. We're going to go out there. I'm going to get our guys the ball. They're going to make people miss, and hopefully we get in the end zone a lot. So it's a business trip for us.
Your phone's excited too. It's like trying to look upward instead of downward at us.
I know.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. But we don't want to lose you. Actually, JB, if you don't mind, I have one follow up. There was a guy on my social media that was all over it this weekend. I started noticing it as I was driving back to upstate New York, safely, of course. But there's this Robert Ehrlich Jr. guy that was all over my social media, and I didn't really look at it deeper until Sunday. I saw some more likes of stuff and whatnot going on. And I'm like, boy, the name rings a bell. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this the former governor of Maryland? I'm like, wait a minute, Perk, what's the relationship between Josh and Bob Ehrlich, basically? And that's your dad, the former governor of Maryland? Never knew it, Josh. So... is politics in your future?
I don't know. I've been around it my whole life. I don't know if I want to get into that game. It's kind of been. So I was born while he was governor, so I've kind of been into it. I love it. I love watching him, do what he does. And my mom also, she's into politics, so it's kind of been my whole life. But I don't see myself getting into that future. It's too much for me.
Josh, as somebody who said the same thing all the way into his mid-40s, let me just reassure you, don't do it. Okay, whatever you do, don't do it. your sanctity of mind or anything else, don't do it. Back to you, JB. Your turn.
Well, and I guess I could have done a little more research here for this question, but I couldn't resist because I realized one of the things that I messed up on in the tail of the tape from last week is the number of and the correct number of touchdowns that Josh has had this season. And for the record, going into this game, 33 passing, 12 rushing, and I just noticed, by the way, 1 receiving touchdown. So is there going to be a Philly special or something going on this weekend? I mean, it's just something that's on film. I mean, can you remind me which game that was and how that play came together? Because I just had to ask.
That was Wilkes on the first drive. We had Rashawn come take the handoff and me leak out the backside. Rashawn, everyone knows Rashawn Lamont's best running back in the country. He actually played quarterback in high school. He was like a Wildcat quarterback. So he just threw it up on a windy day and it landed in my arm. So I can't tell you if that's in the game plan or not. I don't even think we know if that's in the game plan, but that was a pretty special moment. My first ever receiving touchdown. So it's pretty cool.
You see a guy like Matt Young, who you faced, go into the portal and get the interest from Wisconsin, among others. And you and I both know he's built different, okay? There's no doubt he's built different out there. Height, weight, skill, everything about him. He is built like a D1 guy. Rashawn Lamont is a speedster and skill player that has that level of talent. I mean, you look at the portal situation, Josh. How do teams keep it together? You used the portal yourself, obviously, at one point in your career. How do you judge whether you stay, you go, and what's your best advice to players like Lamont, Young, anybody else out there that are looking at this portal saying, do I or don't I pull the trigger? Because once you pull the trigger, there's an onus that goes with it that you don't want to be there anymore necessarily, and so you can't really easily take it back, though some people have. But what is your best advice as somebody that's been through the process?
Right. Well, I can't really speak on those other guys, but for me, who went through the process, leaving Marist and coming to Susquehanna, that was the best decision I ever made. I think finding a great school on top of a great football program that has a winning culture for me was my top 3 things, and I found it in the first school that contacted me and the only school I took a visit to. So I really think it's a feel thing within the program. I think, winning football games is a lot of fun. Going to the Final Four is a lot of fun. And if you want to do that, come to a place like Susquehanna or any of these other, type of small schools, and it's a great experience. And, if you're good, they'll find you, is my advice to a lot of these people, especially with, those types of the bodies and talent and stuff. If they're good, they'll find you.
Well, I bet. And it's been a real pleasure watching you this season, even though there was one game where I was kind of hoping, it would have gone the other way, but that's just my little school there in upstate New York. But it's nice to know we've got a couple more years of Josh Ehrlich football with Susquehanna. Good luck on this weekend. I think, at this point, just put it out there. The way you guys have been playing, if you can get the ball with the last 2 minutes on the clock, anything's possible. So give it your best shot, and it would be really cool to see a potential upset or something, and maybe we'll see you in Houston. So we'd like to give you the chance for any shout-outs to friends, family, that Bob guy that maybe Frank mentioned, other folks that may be tuning in to check this out. Josh Ehrlich, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be a fun 60-minute battle on Saturday. I can't wait to go out there and play in Chicago against a storied program. Like you said, shout out my dad, my mom, and my brother, who they haven't missed a game. So I love you guys, and shout out the boys back home in Annapolis too.
Man, what a ride this has been. And I said it before the season, you are one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You've made me look smart, which I do need all the help I can get, Josh. So thank you for that.
Doesn't happen all the time,
No, it does not. Not even 50% of the time. But Josh, you've proven everybody, including myself, as the lights go out there, that things are very, very good when Josh Ehrlich is under center. And best of luck, as JB said, on Saturday. Let's just hope for a good game. No targeting calls, no controversies. Let's just have a pure good football game.
Exactly, and thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate all you guys do week in and week out for D3 football. It means a lot. So thank you guys.
Very enjoyable time with Josh Ehrlich, to say the least. He's got just one of those personalities that's kind of infectious when you're even around him, at the games. And I remember when he did beat Hobart, he was one of the first people to come up to shake my hand and everything else. And, that's kind of the culture of Susquehanna, why I do enjoy going out to Sealands Grove, because it's not a short trip, JB. It's 4.5 hours from where I live here. It is kind of one of those rides that you'll get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to make if you want to get there in time for the game and to, get parking and everything else. So, you got to love, I think, the atmosphere you're going to do that on 3-4 times actually, because of Landmark Media Day this year, and I did. And then I finally learned about BJ's Oyster House, like I said the other day. After all these visits, I finally went to the place, and now I know where to go. And I told Perk, why did you tell me sooner? We were talking the other day about this.
Coach.
Let's look at a couple things here. First off, I accidentally had switched to it during the interview as I was getting it ready for now. Susquehanna's schedule results this season. You'll see the loss versus Cortland. The one thing I'm going to point you to, though, obviously, is the number of points being given up. On how many occasions were they giving up 30 or more there? 1 in the loss, 2, 3, 4 times they've given up 30-plus points this season. And that's a lot for a team that is, at this point, in some ways they're lucky to be at this point if that's what they can give up sometimes. It tells you how important the offense is, but the defense is going to be the difference maker in a game like what we're going to see. And so, JB, take us through the tail of the tape for Susquehanna at North Central, which is right here on screen for you to help you out. This is the late game, the 3:30 p.m. game on Saturday.
Yeah, so we didn't see too many changes week to week. I mean, I think each team's offense may have gone down a little bit as far as total yardage and defense here and there. We did talk about in the interview, Josh did throw 2 interceptions in the game against Bethel, so he's up to 6 there. Their turnover margin is now only +3. You normally don't have teams in the Final Four with a +3 turnover margin. You can see the point differential really favors North Central. Their defense has been super consistent. The 87.7 rush allowed went up about 17, 18 yards because of the Springfield game, because they basically only run the ball. But their offense still over 530 yards a game. And, Luke Lennon had a couple of passing touchdowns, no interceptions last week. And the +14 is the best turnover margin out of any of the Final Four teams. So realistically, Susquehanna has to try to push the run game to the extent that they can. They can't turn over the ball. And they really have to kind of do what Cortland did in the Stag Bowl. They have to get the ball to guys like Kyle Howes, who's a 1,200-yard wide receiver with 16 touchdowns. Chris Buchter, a 5th year, 35 catches for 604 yards, 9 touchdowns. So they kind of need to follow that script, let Rashawn Lamons try to get something going in the run game. He's also a receiver. He's caught almost 420 yards worth of catches. I think he's had 39 receptions. It's the second highest on the team. So you might see them do different sort of swing passes or other motion kind of things to get this really aggressive North Central defense to sort of back off a little bit. But the thing that troubles me a little bit, Frank, and it came up in the interview with Zach Orr, was his basic admission that near the end of last season, North Central was kind of like, we got this in the bag. They weren't really as focused. The practices weren't as crisp. And I think that after what happened in Salem, these guys are more locked in than ever. There's a lot of fifth-year guys, seniors that are trying to go out with a trophy and do that 2-2 overall championship record. So that's going to be a tough thing to overcome for the Riverhawks, who have never played on this stage, at least not in recent memory. So they need to be able to survive a couple of punches to the mouth in the first quarter, not fall behind by a couple of scores, and make this thing a game by extending the field and stretching it, just sort of like Cortland did last season in the Stag Bowl.
I said it before the season, as much as I said about Josh Ehrlich being one of the best quarterbacks out there at the preseason time, I also said that exact thing about the whole 1-2 in the Stag Bowl scenario. That it's something that you look at a Luke Lannon and you say, how are they going to allow that to stand? Because, the last 3 years before this season, 13-1, the loss was the Stag Bowl. 15-0, the championship. 14-1, lost to Cortland in the Stag Bowl. This season, obviously, 13-0 is North Central. So the only losses in Luke Lannon's college career are in the Stag Bowl, and for anybody that's been on the team with him. And how are they going to allow him to finish at 1-2 and that be the legacy? And that, you are absolutely right. That's going to be tough. So I think we should actually go to the prediction right now. We'll go game by game on predictions. I've got mine locked in already. So I guess, what do you say in terms of who's going to win and by what score and for what reason?
Well, based on everything you just said and what I just said, it feels like the pick for me will be North Central, but I take exception with people out there that are putting 17 or 20-point spreads on this. That's just disrespectful to what Susquehanna has accomplished and how this offense can score. And what we saw in the Stag Bowl last year, I think that it'll be a much closer game, but when it's all said and done, I believe that Luke Lennon and the Cardinals will advance to the Stag Bowl by a score of 42 to 38 or 35. Yeah, it's going to be a close game.
I'll read you my quick hit for this week. A friend asked me today, when was the last time a team played the number 1, number 2, and number 3 teams in a single season? The answer is rarely, if ever, as scheduling and the setup of brackets usually doesn't embrace it, yet Susquehanna is going to face that scenario when they face North Central. After a somewhat bad week versus Bethel, Susquehanna quarterback Josh Ehrlich is going to be ready to bounce back, but the opponent his team will face is the best team in D3 football this season. The concern for me here is that the Riverhawks defense is giving up over 350 yards per game, and it's a bad sign, versus an offense led by Luke Lannon. I think Susquehanna keeps it somewhat close throughout, but Luke Lannon will not be denied a chance to get back to the Stag Bowl one more time. I have it as a 30-20 game in favor of North Central. So, and I'll tell you, the output last week by the offense for North Central should be a slight concern to them because, Springfield's got a good defense, but I didn't think that was going to be the strength scenario. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things I realized that we forgot, Frank, was our Huddle forecast. And that game in Naperville was played, I think, in the rain. It was 30 degrees. And so that kind of took away a lot of the passing potential that we've got we got the Huddle forecast for this weekend. Cool. Even chillier, 25 and 27. Yikes. Frank, I hope you fix those thermal socks. That were burning your feet. I don't know if you probably gave up on those, or maybe you bought some UGG boots.
They worked last week. I did
cold.
Better with them last week.
Okay.
I did much better. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think part of one of the things we sort of forgot about the whole lack of offense from North Central might have been the weather. I don't know. Could have been just Springfield defense is pretty good.
I think you get to a point, though, when you're a northern team, that the weather's not going to affect you like that either. You kind of learn to play through this stuff, maybe it's responsible for a mistake here or there, but not an entirety of a game usually. JB, let's continue here. The game I will be attending is the early game, the noon game, Eastern Time at Alliance, Ohio. It's going to be Johns Hopkins at Mount Union. I got to see him play part of a game, our guest, the first game of the season. I haven't seen Johns Hopkins up close and personal since that point. I think many of us wrote them off once Bay Harvey went down. And, with Will Leger teetering for a certain period of time with his injury status. And we're going to hear from Will right now, the tight end, graduate tight end for Johns Hopkins. You saw him grab, like a 70-yard pass last week versus Mary Hardin-Baylor early in that game, and that set the tide for that game, really. And UMHB just couldn't come back from 17-0 eventually. They tried and had a chance, but just couldn't get past it. But, the offense is going to play a key role here for Johns Hopkins. I keep saying it. They need to score 20-plus to win this game, I feel like. And so let's talk about that with Will Leger. Here we go. Well, Will, get used to seeing me. I guess I'm going to be on the sideline one more time for a Blue Jays game. I was at your first game this season, one that I don't think you necessarily want to think about too much because you got a little injured in that game. But hopefully for you guys, it's not your last also that I attend this season. First off, welcome and thanks for joining us. But, take us through the season, Will, because obviously you had some bumps and bruises along the way. It has not been the easiest of seasons for you personally. Take us through it.
Yeah, definitely. It's been an interesting season for myself and for everyone this year. I tore my UCL against Ithaca that week one game. We've had some other guys go down kind of intermittently throughout the year. Bay Harvey getting a knee injury and getting out the year. But, it's really our success this season is really a test to all the guys that are able to step up and kind of, fill those roles and succeed and find a way to win throughout the year.
Well, let's talk about saving the best for last, maybe. Will, you had such a breakout game against Mary Hardin-Baylor. I think it was, 6 catches for 139 yards, and if it wasn't for a shoestring tackle around the 5-yard line, you probably would have scored a touchdown. What was it about that the matchup? Was there just something that the coaches saw where they could utilize you and create some matchup challenges, or is it just one of those things where your QB Ranella was making calls at the line and just made some good plays with you?
Yeah, our OC Coach H had a great game plan going into that game. So really, we were just kind of following through that, finding the spots in the zone that were open, and it just so happened that I was there for a decent amount of them. So.
Indeed. Just watching that 70-yarder to start the game was something else. And that's the thing, though. You guys are sprinting out to leads, but then not scoring in the second half. And we talked about in our Crunch Time show earlier, released on Thursday, where it feels like something kind of goes awry around the red zone later in games for you guys right now. Offensively, do you want to be scoring more than 14, 17 points? What's kind of going on here? And do you think you have to against a team like a Mount Union out there who, obviously is a vaunted team from, decades of success and everything else? Kind of give us your thoughts on what we've seen and what we need to see here from your team.
Yeah, I feel like we're right there, especially, in the second half, plenty of opportunities, red zone, and we're a few of them. Obviously we'd like to score as many points as we possibly can, but we benefit from having such a great defense to where we can play complementary football. And our goal as a unit and as a team in general is just to win the game. So doing whatever we can to find a way to win is the point of emphasis there.
Yeah, and speaking of your defense, they've really been so impressive this whole season. You've been going up against these guys during practice for this year and in years prior. What is it that they've kind of pulled together here that keeps all these points down and keeps all these games close?
Just what jumps off the bat is the amount of trust that they have in each other, and that the offense on the team, coaching staff, fans have in the defense. A team could be on the 4-yard line or in the close to the red zone, and we just have a lot of confidence that we're going to pull out a stop. And, that comes from the trust that they have within their group. We got a lot of great players as well. But really that kind of team trust and team feel that we have really helps us a lot on the D side.
Well, James Ranello is somebody that I didn't have the confidence in. I'm not going to lie to you. When you have a Bay Harvey type out there, who's kind of a commander of the field general proverbially out there, I thought he would be almost impossible to replace if he had to be out for any length of time. And apparently it's a long length of time. But Ranello has really impressed both of us. We've said it on our show. At first, he wasn't losing games or making the mistakes to lose games ultimately, which is, I think, part and parcel of what you want to see when somebody like he gets inserted into that situation. But now he seems to be able to engineer drives and, has a little bit of confidence, I think, in the way he's carrying himself. So give us your report card on James Ranello. I mean, what was your feeling? You've probably known him for a while, obviously, as a teammate. But, give us your thoughts on how he's handled the situation.
Yeah, I mean, we're all super proud of the way he's been able to step up and, fill that role. But, just from playing with him for the past 4 years, we was a baller. So when he was stepping into that game, I think against Roan was his first one. Everyone on the team, trusted him and was confident in him. And, he's very confident in himself and the way he plays. I think has really helped us this season, just maintaining success and being able to not take a step back but continue forward.
Well, Will, I can't remember exactly how many guys we've had on the show in our 16-17 season run here from Houston. I know if we did, they were probably from Mary Hardin Baylor or maybe Hardin Simmons. But here you are, a Houston guy up in Baltimore. What would it mean to you and your family to have effectively a home game for the national championship if you guys can, get a win on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm talking about it with my family and my friends ever since I heard the announcement that we're playing in Houston. Kind of just throughout that whole time being like, yeah, we got there so we can have, everyone in watching us play. Yeah, I mean, I really want to, make it back there and be able to play in front of my friends and family and, just be in an environment that's pretty familiar to myself. So really cool.
And your dad wouldn't have to spend airfare for once to come watch you play, which is a routine situation for him, your biggest fan out there when it gets down to it. And always good to see him when I've gotten to talk to him at games and for all of his support outside of the games as well. So, Will, your dad is second to none as a supporter out there. Mount Union Alliance, what's your game plan in terms of travel? We are recording this on Thursday. A couple hiccups with your video today, but we're going to make it through this just fine. For those that are wondering, it's not your end, it's ours. But what is the game plan to travel, and what do you think of this team? Because again, vaunted is an understatement for all the history and everything. And I mean, you beat one of the vaunted teams out there, Mary Hardin Baylor. Here's another one ultimately. So when do you guys head out there, and give us your thoughts on what's up in front of you?
Yeah, so we're leaving Friday morning. We're taking a bus out there. It's within the range. So we got a long day on the road on Friday, then getting into Alliance and going through walkthroughs and everything like that, going into that. And then Mount Union's always been a great team since I've been playing and since I've been playing. So we respect them a lot. They're a great program. They have a great team, and a bunch of great football players. We're going to do our best and put our best foot forward and, kind of focus on what we can do to overcome Mount.
Yeah, and we will definitely be watching intently. Fortunately, there aren't any conflicts or multiple games going on, so the country will have right at noon you guys and Mount Union with their full attention. But before we let you go, Will, we wanted to give you a chance to give any shout outs to friends, family. We thank you for joining us and wish you luck on your potential journey back home to Houston.
Yeah, thank you. Frank mentioned it earlier, but my dad's the best. My mom too. They come up to a lot of away games from Houston, so want to push for a home game finally for them. So shout out to them.
One thing before we let you go, in the lead up to the interview, JB was asking you kind of what your specialty is or your concentration was in school and what's next. But kind of tell the world, because you are the proverbial Johns Hopkins student, let alone football player, in terms of this guy's smart, folks. What was the concentration and what's next for you?
Yeah, so in my master's, there's my concentration in space systems engineering. So obviously looking for my first job still, but I want to be working on space missions, so like NASA, particularly like the human kind of aspiration aspect of that.
If you ever went to space, you'd be the tallest guy in space ever, probably, Will. I'm not going to lie to you there. You are no short guy. And I don't know if you'll fit in a space shuttle type scenario, but best of luck on what is next. And let's just say anybody that wants to have a very smart guy who's got a good character about him and a good sense of humor, this is the guy for you, Will Ajay. Look him up, folks, and he's going to do well for your company out there. I don't know how we became the recruiting company as well, but we want to see all of our guests aspire to do big things ultimately, and you're going to be one of them. Well, best of luck, safe travels, and I will see you out there in Alliance, Ohio on Saturday.
Thank you so much, guys.
Will Ajay, the tall guy, for sure. If I can find a way to do it here, remember that we've got the picture of me next to him from in our intro.
Oh, yeah, that's right, and the Blue Jay bar.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to work, so hold on.
Where's your bucket hat, Frank?
Pause it. Hold on, we'll right there. I'm a little short compared to Will. There's no doubt about that. Just saying. Anyway, let's get going here with our synopsis of Johns Hopkins at Mount Union. First, because we had a Johns Hopkins guest on our show, we would look at their win-loss. And that Salisbury game is something that you have to look at here, because Mount Union beats Salisbury. Salisbury beats Hopkins by 28, although that's, I believe, where the Bay Harvey situation started going awry because he was fighting injury at that point as well. And so that's some missing pieces there, obviously. But to lose by 28 was a pretty big shock to a lot of us at that point. But since that game, and you pointed this out, 13-7, 6-7, 13-0-0, 14-9, and 10 were the defensive outputs or allowances, or whatever you want to call it. And, again, for as much as we talked about Susquehanna's strength being the offense, here's Johns Hopkins' strength, the defense. And so I'm not worried about the strengths of a team as much as I'm worried about the weaknesses or the not as strong aspects of a team, if that might be the better way to say it at this stage of where we're at in this whole national setup we're in. JB, one more time, I'll let you take the tail of the tape for Johns Hopkins at Mount Union, the noon kickoff game.
Yeah, well, you could see that Mount Union averages a little more than 120 yards a game. Kind of interesting how balanced their pass and rush attack is. That's pretty rare in certain respects, so that's something to keep an eye on. I mean, there's no way that they're going to rush for over 200 yards against this team. The defensive line is just too good. But you look at Hopkins, they only allow 86.6 yards per game rushing. Something's got to give there. On the flip side, Hopkins averages a little over 220 yards per game passing, which is close to what Mount allows. The quarterbacks, you could say that this is a battle of backups, but both TJ and James at this point have proven themselves to be starting caliber, so I'm going to throw that one out the window. Similar stats for the most part. Ranello has a few more passing touchdowns because he's played in more games, but otherwise almost identical types of statistics there. Even the turnover margin's not that different. 19 takeaways versus 15, 13, so that's kind of a push. The point differential, though, jumps out because Mount Union's averaging almost 43 points per game, and Hopkins is only allowing about 11 points per game. And it's interesting, Frank, I kind of broke down the scores of the 3 playoff games that these guys have played so far, and Mount Union's been winning on an average of 35-14. Hopkins has been winning on an average of 16-11. So 3 touchdowns versus less than a touchdown. Something's got to give there. I have a feeling that this game could have the same type of ending as the 21 Muhlenberg Mount Union playoff game. I could see overtime happening, but I think this Mount team just has a little more offense, and their defense is pretty good too, which could spell trouble because, like you said, if Hopkins can't score more than 20 points, they're gonna have a hard time in this one.
Yeah, let's go directly to prediction time then. Again, I am locked in, so we'll let you go first with respect to your pick on this, and go right ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close, low-scoring game, and I do feel like there is potential for a overtime period. So I'll call this one for Mount Union late, 23-17. I think they may win it in overtime with a touchdown, or maybe 20-17 with a field goal. I think Hopkins is going to give them a hard time, but with guys like Echeverry and Rossi Moore on the defensive side of things, just a couple of more playmakers that will be the difference, and we'll see a rematch of the 22 Stag Bowl.
And I write this week we've heard a lot about the Johns Hopkins defense, and for good reason. The Blue Jays have given up 14 or fewer points in every game since week 1. The stats would support JHU winning this game if they could have put up more points on offense. James Ranello has done an admirable job after QB Bay Harvey went down, but the Blue Jays will need to score 21 or more points to win this game. They've yet to exceed 17 in the playoffs, and guys like Rossi Moore will likely ensure that the offensive output remains tamped down. I expect this game to remain close and low scoring, but I feel the Purple Raiders will pull away late. 24-14, Mount Union winning is my prediction for that game. So, we have agreement. Therefore, you have won the picks battle between us this season, as there's no way I can pick up 2 games on you. But, again,
I was really tempted
season.
to pick Hopkins just because I knew that I would have like that. I have that one to burn, or maybe Susquehanna. I was like, but I got to play it safe. I have to have something to lord over you for the.
Yeah, well, I could have also gone counterintuitive in this whole thing and, said, I know what you're going to pick probably, so I could go against you. And the same thing with Riley.
We're trying to be objective, right?
Yeah, Riley's going to pick the same teams, I'm pretty sure. So this is about, look, if we're wrong, then they're going to be excited even more because we're helping set the stage for, hey, you Frank and James and other people don't think you have a chance to win this game. I don't think it's that quite, but, that's what they'll probably say amongst themselves. But we do think you have a chance to win these games, to be honest with you, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. But, we went a little Region 2 specific here because we don't know if we'll see these teams come Houston time, so that's why we reach out to them to talk to their players and focus on them. Go ahead.
The other reason is we went with North Central and Mount Union guys last week. So
good point. That too. Forgot about that. Good point. Actually, it's kind of ironic we did that because that doesn't require us to go back that way unless we did exactly that. If different teams have won out last week. So I guess we're creatures of habit and predict pretty well in that respect. Last thoughts here on stuff. JB, Ivy League announcing they're going to participate in FCS playoffs in 2025. Yeah, yes, you got that again. But,
goals.
The NESCAC, from what I understand, the students have heard the call finally 2 months after we told them your voices matter in this situation. The Ivy League SAC is what basically got this going, the Student Advisory Committee. And so here we are. I'd love to see the proposal, and if there wasn't the mention of equity perhaps Title IX, and other stuff inside that proposal that sort of maybe lit the fire underneath the Ivy League to make this change. But there are students mobilizing in the NESCAC, from what I understand, and some coaches as well. I'm not going to name names because I don't think they want that at this point, but I will tell you flat out that there is going to be underway a movement to get the NESCAC going as well. Why not? If the whole idea for the NESCAC was the Ivies don't do it, so we're not going to do it either, well, now the Ivies are going to do it. So now what's your excuse? Yeah, as the rest of your sports go to the playoffs, I don't think you can hide behind these things anymore, folks. So, we'll see where this goes. Best of luck to the student athletes, because I think the NESCAC would be entertaining in the playoffs. Granted, with a 75-man roster cap, I think it's a little bit, impossible for them to go past the second round game at this stage because of the depth issues that come with that. But who knows? Funnier things have happened down the line. But they are definitely a team that can win a second or third round scenario, getting into at least a quarterfinal game. When I talk about second round, I keep forgetting we have an opening round now. So the third round is probably what I should have said. But no, that's my take on it. We'll see where it goes. I mean, your last thoughts on that subject, because I think we kind of beat that dead horse a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I think I'm good there. What I want to run by you, to put your legal hat on, Mr. Mayor, is this interesting decision that happened on Wednesday where Diego Pavia, who apparently is a guy who's sued the NCAA for eligibility because he spent a couple of years in junior college and effectively won. And people are saying that, quote, Wednesday's ruling is a landmark moment, not only paves the way for all junior college players, to gain an additional year of eligibility, but it may invite future legal challenges over the NCAA's traditional eligibility policy. So the long and short of it is, if you do a year or two at JUCO, it's not going to count towards your NCAA eligibility. And I had a fan ask me, do you think this will affect D3? On one hand, I'm kind of like, nah, because people who go to JUCO aren't really looking at the maybe academic D3 route, which, most of the D3 football schools do have at least some kind of admission standards. We're seeing at the FCS and D1 level with rosters and all this stuff kind of and transfers down maybe. I don't know. What are your thoughts regarding the decision and whether or not JUCO players could infiltrate D3 or something and be 26 years old?
I'm going to disagree with you on one part, because I really do think that the JUCO setup is actually enticing students that just aren't mature enough or ready enough in the education sense to handle the four-year institution, and the 2 years at JUCO can obviously hone them in different ways. So I think what you're going to see, if this does play out and if an appeal doesn't occur that nullifies this, is the idea that you're going to have artificial COVID fifth years actually continue down the line, maybe not instantly, but eventually, in a way that, somebody might stay the extra year to do grad school at the 4-year because they've had a successful go of it in the educational sense. So they may not burn all 4 years in that undergrad, grad sense, but they may burn 3 of them instead of just 2 of them in that respect now. And so I think that's what you'll see happen, is somebody that's got some great talent that can't quite get to a D1 school, still out of JUCO, goes to D3 for a couple of years, sees the possibility to get themselves some further tape, goes that 3rd year to maybe make an impact on recruiting for some pro league or the pro league, if you know what I mean. So I think a watershed moment. It definitely it's probably still got to go through appeals. And I think, having, as you pointed out, 24, 25-year-old seniors, at least eligibility-wise in the NCAA, that gets me a little bit concerned, because the development factor is that you hit your peak probably around 24, 25 as a football player, as a male especially. And so that might be a little bit daunting out there to see that play out more often than it currently does, because we do have some older seniors out there. But, I don't hate it. if the JUCO system helps develop, educationally, these folks that, might not get as much out of going directly to the 4-year, and this allows them to go a full path, that's great. If they're using it just for to kind of shield the system on this whole thing, maybe not so great, but I'm going to try to think of it as an optimist in this one and say I think the players that are going to utilize it are going to be utilizing it mainly for the right reasons out there, and so let's hope that's the case. I think that's about it here. Coffee Cakes, our friend Antoine, or Anton.
He was the one that asked the question.
Well, he also pointed out MPI's most transparent system. Transparency doesn't always mean better in the sense of just because we know the numbers doesn't mean that the numbers are right, and that's the problem. Okay, and it's still there's going to be a lot to be talked about once we get some time to talk about it and to sit down and write our treatises about this whole thing. But the point remains that strength of schedule was not well embraced in the system that was set up. And they can do better with that at a minimum with the dials, but then they've also got to consider, I think, some other subtle changes for football beyond the current dials that are out there. That's the concern, and subjectivity might be something they still need to massage back into the system. That's our point when we talk about MPI. JB, anything else? I mean, there's no how to watch it. There's 2 games, and they're separated, so I know how to watch it. ESPN Plus, that's how you watch it, right? So any last thoughts before we go? Yes, the Plus.
No, I just hope we get to see a couple of competitive games. I mean, I'm hoping that the Mount Hopkins game is kind of like what we saw with Carnegie Mellon, less than a touchdown, kind of a back and forth, affair. I have a feeling that the late game could be a bit of a shootout, unless, of course, the Riverhawks just kind of wilt in the moment, which we've seen lots of programs do that have gotten to the Final Four from Region 2 in the past. It's just a whole nother step up. But the fact that they've gone head-to-head with Cortland beat this team from North Central last season. There's a belief system in Susquehanna's mind, like, hey, why not us? We can do this. Why not? Let's just throw it all on the table, see what happens. And I hope that both games are close ones and entertaining, and that everyone stays safe and healthy. Please, no targeting penalties or any holding calls on the last play of the game, please. Let's just try to have clean, relatively safe football on Saturday. And Frank, good luck staying warm on the sidelines of Alliance. We'll be looking for you as always. Where are those khakis? I see them. Okay. They're in the goal line, and so should be a fun weekend. And then hopefully at some point the NCAA will tell us when the frickin' Stag Bowl game is going to be, so we can book our flights and make some plans to get to Houston for January 5th. Come on, guys.
Seriously. Okay, folks. Again, latest ever games, a tie since 2002's Stag Bowl is tomorrow. Go ahead.
You know what I just realized too, Frank? Our picks today were our 200th and 201st picks of the season. We've gone over 200.
Yeah, what's your, how many wins do you have so far? I don't have my numbers
According
in front of me here.
to my little trusty notebook here, we are at, I'm 139 and 60, and you are 137 and 62. We're both around,
you're just
I think I'm
near
69%. Nice.
Yep.
You're probably like 67 and a half, so we're trying to get to 70 before the end of the year.
Well, we'll see what happens. 3 games, I guess we could get, at least or you would be able to. I think I might still need a little help with the math on that. But anyway, folks, as he said, be safe. We'll see you. Obviously, we'll have some. Pat Coleman will be in Naperville. I'll be in Alliance. So both games will be covered via Twitter in that respect. So tune into there for on-field clips, which we do in the semifinals. We do not do it in the Stag Bowl because that's on the main network at that point. And out of respect, we don't do that.
One other quick thing that I think
you're full of all these last things here.
Replay will happen this weekend, potentially. It's available. It wasn't before. We've talked about it, but yeah, semifinals and finals there is a replay option. We might see a stoppage in game for a review. Just keep an eye out for that.
Absolutely, and both schools have done this level of production before with ESPN production teams. So I expect multiple, more than 5 is my guess. Angles will get this weekend compared to what we had at Randolph-Macon at Wartburg. I think it was last year. Okay, folks, for real this time. We will see you this weekend on X, and next week maybe a little Christmas show to review for Crunch Time next week. Thanks for joining us. Be well. We will upload this to Twitter for those wondering almost right away.